Welcome back to Yin and Young, the podcast. Today, it's a long time coming. This episode, I've been waiting for. I've been waiting for this, to link up with Greg again and Richard again. So, yeah, I guess Dan.
Yeah.
So there. Okay. I guess we'll do. Let's introduce just our name, just so everyone knows, because some people are listening to this not on video, but on iTunes. So so this is James, aka Young.
This is Dan, aka Yin.
Yep.
Hi, my name is Greg. I play Alan.
Hi, I'm Richard.
Cool. And so we're a part of the team for Ahma Alan, the short film I wrote and directed. So we filmed last month. We filmed from December 9th through December 13th. So, and then now we're, as the time of this recording, it's been over a month since then. And for me personally, I just wanted to talk about it before my memory fades, and just to catch up with these two and to hear, because as a director, I'm juggling a lot of different things, and sometimes maybe my experience on the shoot is completely different from Richard's or Greg's experience, and I'm curious to hear their thoughts about the shoot and also what they've been up to. So yeah, I mean, and Greg and Dan, of course, you're kind of like our third eye.
Right.
You're gonna be the interviewer, I guess. Ooh. Yeah.
We should specify that Richard was a cinematographer because.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No,
yes.
we skipped that part.
Oh, okay. All right. So okay.
We'll start fresh.
Fresh. Okay.
Yeah, James is the director of Ahma Alan, and also the writer.
Yeah.
And then Alan is the star, Greg is the star who plays
you're not
Alan.
wrong.
And then Richard is the cinematographer for the film.
Richard is a director of photography, also known also known as a cinematographer. I mean, is it interchangeable or?
Some people say they're slightly different.
Okay. So what would you call yourself? The director of photography? Right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then, but he also acted as the main camera person as well, camera operator as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, did you have something you want to start with, Dan, or should I start it, or what do you want to do?
I just want to know what drew both Richard and Greg to this project. I mean, was it something about the writing or the chance to work overseas? Have you guys worked overseas before in Taiwan?
Okay, yeah.
I'll take the lead on this.
Yeah,
I've never worked overseas. I've done commercials and stuff that went overseas. I've done commercials that are run in China, but they were filmed here in the U.S. So for me, it was definitely part of it was to just be able to travel for work and just see how things are run on in another country, and to be able to say that I've traveled for work. But more so than that, it's honestly during the audition process, afterwards there was an interview that James conducted with all the people who had callbacks that he liked, and during then we really got to talk to each other. We really figured out I think it's really cool just to be able to talk to him as far as because he wrote it as well. And most of the times you only see it from the director's point of view of okay, this is how I want to see it shot. This is how I want to see it, XYZ
Right.
done. But from a writer's point of view, it's almost it resonated with me a lot because especially being in ABC, I am pretty similar to Alan as far as character goes. There's definitely a language barrier between me and both sides of my grandparents because neither of them speak English, and my Chinese is not excellent by any stretch of it, but it's barely enough where I can speak to them just a little bit, and I think a lot of it comes from there's a lot of kind of talk of not really regret, but just kind of the sense of there's so much more that you can know about your grandparents, about your family line that is kind of lost because I don't speak the language that they do, and so although I do want to spend more time with them, want to get to know them better, my lack of the language kind of puts a barrier on it, and I think that's there's a lot of that in the story of the love between family, but also kind of the frustration of like a language barrier. And I feel like, especially as an ABC, and I know plenty of other people who are in my situation as well, who are, especially in the U.S., where, our parents, grandparents moved from Asia somewhere. And like, because of that, we've lost, I know a lot of ABCs who don't actually even speak Chinese at all. And I know that all of them are like, they pretty much regret it. But at the same time, it's weird because in the U.S., you don't really need to speak your home language because everyone here speaks English.
Right.
But at the same time, it's that weird feeling of like losing, not really your identity, but like a connection to, like the older generation because of that, language difference. But anyway, long story short, my main interest in it was honestly just that, like how it's like a real story for like Asians of our generation, where there aren't many stories like that around. Most of it, if they throw in an Asian person, it's like for a token Asian person, or like the stereotypical roles of like kung fu master or like a nerdy business person or whatever. But they're not really like fleshed out like this character
Right.
is.
Yeah, because I know for the audition, I used like a monologue that's towards the end of the film about basically a police officer questioning Greg's character, Alan, about why is your Chinese so bad, and that I think. So I'm kind of
no.
I'm glad that's something you got from
Mm-hmm.
it. Yeah, because that's definitely all I'm trying to do is write from experience and from what I've seen. And also just what you said made me think about. Yeah, I remember you telling me we were trying different stuff that last day, based on the audition piece that we did. That was actually the last day of filming, day 5. And what's great about Greg is he's throwing out all these ideas. And we tried one where like he talked about how in America, if you speak Chinese, it's kind of like frowned upon because people are in the, mainly, to be honest, like maybe like white people or non-Asian people. Sometimes Asian people, like Asian Americans, might look at you like, why is this kid speaking Chinese in public or something?
Yeah.
So that was the idea that Greg was trying to do. And then like, but what we ended up doing was using it as subtext, right? Yeah, I thought that was pretty. And for some reason, when he said it, and then he stopped saying it, and it made the performance stronger for me. I don't know if you felt that way.
No,
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Anyways, Richard. What?
Sorry.
Same question to you, I guess. Yeah.
Well, you were showing me earlier drafts of the script, and yeah,
Sorry, just sorry to cut you off, but like Richard he's probably the earliest collaborator on this short film because when I first completed like a full draft of it, he was one of my first readers. Yeah. So sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
yes,
It's
and I've seen the script, and it's improved a lot since there's early versions. But yeah, for the similar reasons to Greg, I think what like resonated with me from the script was the character of Alan being Asian American and growing up speaking Chinese, but then forgetting it and then coming to regret it later on because of wanting to get a better connection with your culture and your family background and your older family members. I mean, it's very similar to my own personal experience.
Cool. Yeah.
Are your grandparents still alive?
My grandma on my mom's side is still alive. Yes.
Okay. And what about you, Greg?
Both my fathers they're both passed away. Both my grandmothers are both still alive, but they're both they're old enough where they have one of them has dementia and the other one has like depression, and so it's kind of like not to get too into it, but obviously like they're not the same kind of person that they used to be, you know what I mean? Where like the sickness has started to get to them more, and I think even that kind of played more in the sense of like I should have like gotten to know them better while I still had the chance, and like now it's like I can still talk to them, of course, but it's not exactly the same, if that makes sense. Yeah.
I mean, to that aspect of language, I personally grew up speaking from the age of like 0 to like 4. I was speaking like a mix of like Taiwanese and Mandarin because I spent like a lot of time in Taiwan when I was a baby because my parents, they couldn't really take care of me because I had 2 older siblings, right? And so my grandpa and my grandma, I was going back and forth between Taiwan and California, at a very young age. So I was just like speaking like this gibberish, you know, like ni hao what got it going, you know, like
Like a mismatch of
a
all the
mismatch.
languages.
Yeah. So then I think a doctor told my parents, like, when I settled to get ready for kindergarten there, and I was just like, you know, my mom told me there's an episode where I'm in the car and I see my older brother and sister just speaking perfect English to each other, and I'm just like looking at them like blah, blah, blah. And I'm like I can't engage in their conversation.
Oh, wow.
So I guess a doctor said, "Oh, just speak to him in English at home." And then I lost the language, fairly quickly, especially in that environment.
Yeah.
So because I
Like
settled
never-
in the U.S. for kindergarten, and then but then what's crazy is though that my grandparents raised me they came from Taiwan to the U.S. and raised me until age of 10 or so, and they don't speak any English, so. And it was just kind of hard communicating with them. I mean, and I have like a pretty shameful experience where I was like trying to tie my shoe or something, right? And my grandma was like trying to like give me breakfast before I leave. I like hold up the shoe, hey, and she like, you know, she like came back and like as if I was like gonna like, you know, hurt her or something, or like I mean, you know, because I held the shoe up. I was like, hey, I don't know how to say that. I'm tying my shoe. Give me a minute. And like that's probably one of my most shameful experiences, and like I didn't mean, you know, but I didn't know how to communicate like, hey, give me a minute, I'm tying my shoe, and that's one of my regrets.
I mean, it's just like a lot of like misunderstanding, you know. I don't think
Yeah.
it's like you didn't mean any ill intent, but it just
No.
it hurts to know, like, you know, like
Maybe
they don't
she thought
understand and
that,
she
yeah.
might think that you would do something.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, I when later on in life, I mentioned that when I was able to speak more fluently, I asked her about that episode, and she's like, I don't remember that.
yeah. That's true.
She's like, what are you talking about?
That's true, actually.
And then and then she loves me, obviously, and it's interesting. Yeah, I think language is kind of like, are you more, because I know some white guys that speak really, you know, really good Japanese or Chinese or Mandarin, like, and so, but does that make them Asian? You know, no. I mean, yeah.
No, but they probably understand the respective culture more.
Really?
Than someone who doesn't speak the language.
Right.
Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah, so it's this idea of like identity and language and how it ties together has always interested me, you know. So yeah. So I guess one thing, maybe we can start with the genesis of the project and go from there. And then any questions, Dan, you had about the project, you can just chime in. Yeah.
Well, were there any other local hires from Taiwan, or is
Yeah.
everyone from the overseas? Everyone came from
Almost
the States?
everyone was a local hire. This is the overseas hires right here.
Yeah.
Me, Richard, and Greg. Yeah.
And so everyone else was local.
I think so.
Everyone else was except for the Skylar.
Oh.
He's technically, so everyone was
Taiwanese. Right.
so Skylar, our art director, love that guy. He was actually he was visiting. He lives in Amsterdam, but he was visiting that month because he's originally from Taiwan, and he was visiting back Taiwan because he was thinking about moving back to Taiwan.
Right.
And so just like that 1 month of when he was traveling and figuring out his life, he saw my post on Facebook through a mutual friend, and
Right.
He's our art director. And basically, long story short, I was thinking about making Greg's flight. I don't know if you know this. I was thinking about extending your flight to like a later date because we did not have an art director yet, and an art director needs at least about 5-day lead time to make all the props and stuff like that. And we didn't have one like 6 days into like before shooting.
Wow.
So, but like Skylar had emailed me like a week before, before that day, and I was like, okay, and let's keep in touch. And like I couldn't reach him after that for a bit, and then I reached out to him again and then called him. He's like, okay, yeah, I can come in tomorrow and we can chat. And we needed an assistant as well, an art assistant. So eventually, basically found him on the day we definitely needed to lock one in, or else we were going to push the shoot, to be honest. And it would have been maybe like 2-3 extra days or something, but we needed an art director like right away. Yeah. So he's kind of halfway, because he's been living outside of Taiwan for the last for many years, and so he's like technically kind of overseas, kind of local, if that makes sense. Yeah, because he wasn't living in Taiwan at the time. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to go through the genesis of the project, and then we can go touch on other things after that?
Yeah, sure. Genesis. Okay. I allegedly was teaching English illegally in Taiwan. Allegedly. That's what's going to go on record. So when I first came to Taiwan this is about 10 years ago. Yeah. When I first lived in Taiwan, I was looking for work, right? And so I was, how can I phrase this so I don't get in jail? Let me see. Let's just say, like, I was at a kindergarten and a police officer saw me at the kindergarten and allegedly thought that I was teaching there.
Okay.
And basically I was fined for like 3,000 US because I didn't have a work. I just arrived in Taiwan. I didn't have a work permit, and I didn't have to teach in kindergarten. You need some sort of Taiwanese ID. Actually, you can't be a foreigner and teach kindergarten at the time. So I remember when I saw the police officer, they had me come. I was talking to my coworkers, like, should I just make a run for it? and then I was like, and she's like, yeah, maybe. And then the manager came up and said, James, calm down. It's okay. Just go downstairs. We'll talk to them. We'll be fine, right? I was like, oh, fine, okay. I to be honest, I probably should have made a run for it. Like, that's. But so I went down, and what was interesting, they started speaking to me in Chinese. I just got to Taiwan, so I knew some basics from like taking some classes in college, and I was just like, and I pretended like I didn't know English that well, like I was like Taiwanese, and I was trying to speak Taiwanese, but the police officer was like, okay. Do you have your passport with you? And I was like, what's this word? Yeah, passport. I'm like, and I just speaking very like, not trying to give away how American I was,
Right.
And he's like, fine, just phone number. And I think he said it in English. I'm like, okay. So I left my phone number, and I was just like, fuck, what's gonna happen, right? So like a week later, I had to make a report to the police station. And my aunt said, hey, grandma and I will come with you, right? So my grandma and I and my aunt went to the police station, and basically it was very routine. They took down my passport information, and then my grandma like told the police officer, hey, 我跟你讲啊，我的孙啊，我的孙子啊。我可以照顾，我有钱啊，我有钱啊。I got money. I can take care of my grandson. Don't worry. And I thought this like kind of funny, but like this image of my grandma would take with me and trying to protect me at the police station kind of stuck with me, and I remember eventually, long story short, I was able to get off the charges, but I could have been deported, like no joke. Yeah. And it was really, and the thing is, I had just met like a really cool girl at the time in Taiwan, who eventually became my girlfriend at the time. So I was just like, things were clicking here. I met someone cool, and I want to make sure I'm here for see my family, my grandma who I haven't seen in a while. so and then I remember as a writing assignment for Sida, which is a university where I was studying Mandarin at. I won the assignment like a year later. This was like a year after this had happened, and my Mandarin had gotten a lot better. And we had to write like a short story, like a very, very short story. And I remember this incident, and I wrote it into a short story. And then the teacher was like, "Dude, this is pretty good." Yeah, good job by that. By the way, I was really surprised that this guy, he doesn't speak any Taiwanese, and he learned like basically on the I don't know.
I'm pretty much fluent now. It's on my resume. I speak.
And so that episode stuck with me. And so when I first met Richard years later in community college, I was making this transition from like I tried acting for a little while, but I was like, you know what, I want to learn like behind the scenes. So I was taking a lot of community college classes. I met Richard at Anza College over in Cupertino, and then I moved for work. I moved closer to San Francisco, and I started taking City College of San Francisco community college classes. And there was a screenwriting I took screenwriting at Anza, also at City College. And at City College, there was a short, I had to write a short film. I was like, you know what? Let me take this short story. To be honest, like, maybe it's out of laziness, because I was like, man, what am I going to write about? I was like, wait, I already have this short story. Why can I'm just going to steal from myself. I'm going to steal from myself, yeah. So I stole from myself, and I took the short story, made it into a short film. And the teacher liked it, and then and then when I applied for grad school just fairly recently in 2015, I was like, let me revisit this. And then I retouched it up, and I got in as part of my portfolio. And I was like, you know what, maybe this story is not bad, and I liked it. And eventually, I don't know what your guys' goals are, but eventually I personally want to write a short, a feature, not necessarily about this story, but a feature in general. And I think before I do a feature, it's like I want to do like a solid ass short film, and I think this is it. Maybe I should just do this, and then we'll see what happens after that. So that's the genesis of. Does that make sense? Sorry, does that make sense, guys? Or
Yeah. No, it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
That's the story of it.
Yeah.
So Richard, have you worked overseas before? Have you worked in Taiwan before?
No. Like James and I shot a short film for fun about a year or so ago, but this was like the first time like working.
Yeah. We shot something for like no budget, and like we literally we didn't have a script until that morning, so it was just like for fun because we had the gear. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That was the one with James.
That was the one where I acted, and James Fang was in that one.
Yeah.
What'd you think? Honest.
That was pretty good. I mean, yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I like the newer cuts more than the original cut.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. But
And Greg, this is your first time in Taiwan. I mean,
not in Taiwan, but like
working in Taiwan.
Yeah.
Was it challenging?
So up to actually the shoot day, I was actually like low key kind of like, it was a mix of very excited, because you're like, oh, I got to work in another country, but also kind of like nervous in the sense of like, oh man, I had to speak like full Chinese. Like just everyone there is going to be local hire, so I'm probably going to have to like really brush up on my Chinese.
Yeah.
And I was pretty nervous about it, but luckily, I was like, I have an older brother. He's 2 years older than me, and when we were talking about it, he's like, "Dude, why are you stressing out?" So earlier this year, I went to Korea like just for fun with a friend of mine. Like it was like a personal because I booked a bunch of commercials, and my friend got into med school, so it was like kind of like a congratulations to us kind of thing. And we got around Korea for a week neither of us knew any of the language, and like they didn't really speak English there, so it was pretty tough. And my brother was like, dude, if you can get around in a country where they don't speak or you don't speak the language at all, I'm sure you'll be fine in Taiwan, because it's like, it's not like you haven't been there before, but it's kind of nervous because I was like, obviously I don't practice Mandarin a lot here in the States, but I find it very interesting how quickly I picked it up or like adapted to it, because kind of like James, when I was a kid, like 0 to 4-ish too as well, my first language was Mandarin. But like getting into kindergarten, you don't speak Mandarin anymore. You speak English in the States, and so like I kind of realized how much I forgot about it as well. But after going there in Taiwan, especially after like just being in the area surrounded by everybody who only speaks Chinese, it kind of forces you to like pick your brain to like, oh yeah, I actually do know a lot of these words. I know how to say a lot of the things that I need to say. And you know,
how often have you been to? Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's cool.
I was curious about how often did you go back to Taiwan?
Last time I went was, oh my god, it was like 8 years ago actually.
Wow.
Yeah, it was 8 years ago. I went with my high school friends. Like when we graduated high school, we went out to Taiwan just for fun. I mean, I saw my grandma and everything then, but it was different because like, especially like since I was in high school, I didn't really care too much to like absorb the culture. It was more like I'm just there to have fun as an American,
right,
versus like, I'm there to work, or like there to really like absorb the culture and like kind of learn more about it. And like looking back, it's kind of like weird because I realized in high school I definitely didn't identify as like Chinese because like I was like, it's kind of so this kind of brings back to the point of like how it can be frowned upon to speak Chinese here. And the reason is because I don't know if you're gonna edit this part out, but there's like people like fobs, right, called fresh out the boats in high school,
right,
where they're not born here, and they don't really speak English, but they're Chinese, like clearly they're Asian, they look Asian, but they don't speak English, they only speak like Chinese. And I remember in high school they were made fun of all the freaking time, and like as an Asian person, especially people who you can't tell if I only speak English or Chinese. I definitely didn't want to be like related to those people. Like I was like, no, I'm definitely not a fob. I speak English. Don't make fun of me. And it's kind of weird because like they had their own like kind of clique too, like the fobs too. They were very proud of only speaking Chinese, but at the same time it was obviously very hard for them because they get made fun of for speaking English not very well, even though that's why they're here to practice it.
Right.
So I just remember that was like a really weird thing where I was like, it's weird that I don't want to, like be recognized as another Asian person. You know what I mean? I want to be recognized as like an American Chinese person, where I speak English even though I have an Asian face. And it's kind of weird because like for a while, I guess I kind of like had a disconnect kind of thing with that, where it was like, I mean, times have changed clearly,
right,
where like people are a lot more accepting now of everything. But I remember back then it was like, if you don't speak English, why are you here, kind of thing. And it was like it was like a sense of hostility to it. Like nobody would be like up to your face like blatant racism, but it was like that kind of undertone of like making fun of you because you have like an accent. And it's like, well, dude, if you really think about it, now that you're older, you go to a whole nother country and you learn their language, you should be pretty freaking impressed that they can even speak your language a little bit. Like, let's be honest, how many of you American people can go to another country and be like, live and like speak their language, let alone like read and write it or go to school? So I mean, it's just like kind of funny how narrow-minded, I guess, or like closed off I was as like a kid, where it's like, this is all I know, and like, being cool and all that stuff, versus like, the real like open world of it all, where it's like, no, it's very impressive that they can speak any English at all, versus, you're making fun of them for it. Like they're trying to better themselves, they're trying to learn stuff.
I mean, like all these international students, they have to do reports and essays in English.
And it's like in English.
Oh man, if I have to do that shit in Chinese,
I was literally thinking that. I was like,
I'm out.
Like,
I'm out.
Can I ping Ying? Like that's basically like discount English and Chinese. Basically, I'll write English Chinese for you. But like as far as like actual characters, there's no freaking way.
I mean, that's similar to your kind of background too, right, Richard? Or...
Yeah. I definitely know what it feels like to, kind of want to reject that, the Asian, the side of you that makes you different. You know, to try to fit in more, and then growing older, just realizing how, first off, it's impossible, and second of all, it's that's not something that shouldn't be a goal of yours anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You should embrace that side.
Yeah.
And it's who you are. If you reject it, you're basically like rejecting something that's core to you.
Yeah.
And you're never gonna be happy.
I'm curious. What do you guys identify as? Yeah.
That's freaking.
Do you guys identify as Taiwanese, Chinese American, American? Like, what if someone asks you, "Hey,
I think. I mean, now that I really think about it, I honestly think like I don't put so much onto it. Like okay, this is gonna sound super hippie and stuff. It's like
Oh.
I don't put so much on labels,
Oh,
but
this
like
guy.
no, but like for me, it's honestly like, because if you say like I'm American, then it kind of comes like, they all come like with stereotypes or like preconceived notions of like what that's supposed to mean. But like for me, I'm honestly like, if you ask me, I'm say I'm Chinese, but Taiwanese specifically. And then I think the fact that I speak English perfectly, like I don't need to even say like Chinese American or Taiwanese American. I just go I'm Chinese or Taiwanese, and then that's it. You know what I mean? That's how I identify. And I think that's really it. And I mean, this is kind of like going back on a point, but to what Richard said. But it's like, if you're like denying that part of yourself, because it's impossible to like, you know, totally fit in, because obviously look different. But like that, it's not a bad thing, you know. It's like to embrace that different side of you. It's what makes you unique. It's like the positive side of it versus, you know, like, oh, I'm different and that makes me weird and like blah blah blah, negative, you know. I think it's definitely more what he said of like, if you keep denying that side of yourself, you'll never really be happy, because you can't really escape who you are, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I mean, I don't know, I like that. It makes a lot of sense.
So for both Richard and Greg, when you guys were growing up, did you guys grow up around a lot of Chinese people, or did you like grow up more in a wider neighborhood?
Yeah, I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, so there was a
Yeah.
decent amount of Asians around.
And Greg?
So mine is actually the same. Like I didn't grow up in the Bay Area, but I grew up in like SGV, where there's a lot of Asian people.
Right.
San Gabriel Valley,
yeah, San
for
Gabriel
those who
Valley.
don't know. Yeah,
Sorry. San Gabriel
SGV,
Valley.
what's up? 626.
We got good boba. But like, even though I grew up surrounded by Asian people, I always realized that like the Caucasian people like there were not as many. Like they were the majority was definitely still Asian, but like the few Caucasian people that I knew, like they the way that they acted, almost like, even though they were technically a minority in the sense of there's less of them in our school, you could tell that they kind of like they just like acted like they were better than the rest of us. I know there's like a really general way of saying it, and I don't really know how to say it, but like, besides the fact that like really like it just like the Caucasian people always hang out with each other, right? And
It's
for some reason, even though there's like so many Asian people, like all the like cool kids, like the popular kids, Asian kids, they were all like the really like whitewashed or like whitewashed Asians. Like they were the people who like totally embraced American culture, who always try to hang out with the Caucasian guys who try to do like cheerleading and baseball and whatever. Versus like if you like anime or something like that, or like Yu-Gi-Oh, you were like the nerds who were like, ew, nobody, you're not cool. But like that's, I don't know, it was just weird to me that like, even though now that I think about it, there were less Caucasian people in my school growing up, they were always like, as far as like hierarchy of like students go, like they were always the coolest kids, or like the whatever, like you wanted to be them, you wanted to be like their friends or whatever. And I don't really know where that comes from, but just the idea of there was just like something about it that like made them think that they were, or like whatever, seemed more superior to all the other Asians. If I don't know how else to explain it.
This is a sense of entitlement, I'm sure.
Yeah. Basically.
I mean, did you feel that way, Richard? Or
Maybe I didn't consciously realize it, but I think I probably picked up on that. I got that feeling, I guess.
Yeah. Because I mean,
like I got the feeling, like if you want to fit in, like reject that Asian side.
Yeah. And it's like weird. It's like no one says it explicitly to us. Well, I think maybe sometimes they do, like in the movie, you know, like I remember it's like I think forget which movie. It might have been like one of the newer Terminators, but it's like, speak English, you know, like he was like saying that, it's like someone saying that to like this refugee that was just after Skynet took over, whatever. Spoiler. Anyways, there seems to be this kind of, I mean, it's built into our history. Like it's, you know, you weren't allowed to speak during the Japanese internment in World War II. You could not speak Japanese, you know? Right. And so it's built into like, now that's Japanese American, that's their own history, but like everyone was trying during World War II, everyone was trying to show how American they were, you know, Japanese, Chinese, Americans, they were all saying, hey, you know, I'm really American, you know, and I think that the echoes of that have carried out throughout our society, and it's kind of like back to my film. It's like it's similar. Like it's like this idea of identity and Americanness and Taiwanese-ness or Chinese-ness. Like, and then like, you know, okay, Greg and I are huge fans of Avatar: The Last Airbender. You know? So it's like when Iroh says to Zuko, like, "Who are you?" You know,
Right.
Like, who are you? And that's like, and when I worked on you know, David Cho's show, that was it was an application process for people to get into that show, and the first question was, "Who are you?" And that's shit. I'm still kind of like trying to figure out that question. I don't know if I'll ever like fully like have 100%, because that idea of who you are is always, it's kind of yeah, I don't know. It's something I'm still trying to figure out. I think there is maybe a core true self, you know, but then trying to get to there is like kind of get past all these delusions of what society has pushed onto you, or whatever people are saying who you are. Like, who are you, you know? And anyways, I don't know. Sorry, tangent, but yeah.
So growing up in that environment. I mean, we all four of us have grown up in that environment. I grew up in San Diego, so it was mostly white. But what was there a certain situation, or was like a gradual acceptance or realization for yourselves that, oh, you know, it's okay to be Chinese, it's okay to be different? Was there something that led to that, or is it still some? It sounds like James is still like struggling with it, but I mean,
I remember when off of that, when I did the audition process for Alan, Greg's character, through October, and I flew to Taiwan in mid-November for pre-production. And I know for my callbacks, I don't know if it seems like you appreciate it, but what I did for callbacks for the few people I was interested in, I just I basically asked that same question, like, when did you come to a realization of did you ever have like identity crisis? That's essentially the question, right? Like, have you ever resolved that identity issue, right? Or is that
right?
Yeah.
Well, kind of, I guess. I don't know if it's so much an identity, but more like with Greg, he was like, oh, I don't want to be associated with Chinese fobs or whatever like that. But now he's it's actually not a bad thing. You know, what they're doing, you can actually respect them, and you're not embarrassed by them anymore, right? Like for me, I don't give a rat's ass. You know, people are speaking Chinese, people speaking Chinese. But I can tell you what happened for me. But is it for something that happened in your lives when you're like just growing, or are you still figuring that out, do you think?
Actually, can I hear your side of the story too? Actually, because you said you.
Well, for me, I always grew up watching kung fu movies.
Yeah.
And that was like the coolest thing you can think about for Chinese people. Like everyone respected that.
I know.
And then when I started learning kung fu, I was like, oh, you know what? All these people want to be more like Chinese people. They can't do it. They're trying to like, they label things. They're trying to break it down. You know, the ideas, the thought processes. They even came up with this thing called Chinese guilt. You know, which is very similar to Catholic guilt. But they were trying to be more Chinese and trying to get immersed in the culture. They want to dress more Chinese. And that's when, once I started learning kung fu, I was like, oh, you know what? It's not that bad. Be Chinese. Our food kind of smells sometimes a little bit different, but when I was a kid, I was like embarrassed by it. But now I don't give a rat's out. Also, age helps too.
Yeah. Okay. I guess for me, it's interesting because kung fu movies, obviously, big thing for Asian people. That's like one of the few, one of the things that like my dad and I used to always watch together. That's like something that we would love. But it was kind of weird for me because I didn't get really like into martial arts. So I think for me, it wasn't, for my personal life, it wasn't so much focused on like the positive sides, like where people like, because there's like two sides of the Asian stereotype. You know what I mean? Where it's like you're either the really cool martial arts badass, or you're like the really quiet, awkward nerd. Like those are, I feel like, from what I
the
can
two
remember,
extremes.
like those are the two extremes of the
I've
spectrum,
sensed that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think especially because the type of school that I went to, it was San Marino High School, where if you do know it, people
shout out.
Yeah, if you know that school, it has a rep of being like the really rich kids type of school where basically like if you go there you're rich, and if you go there you're like like really well off. Disclaimer. I'm not in San Reno. Like I'm from San Gabriel. Anyway, well, it doesn't matter. Like
Yo, you're rich? What? Okay,
nah, one day. But I digress. The point of all that is, it was more focused on like the nerdy Asian, because that's like the type of people, like the Asians that went to my school were mostly, they were the nerdy Asians. Like they were the like kind of stereotypical where like we don't really say our feelings, we don't really talk and like start crap. It's more like,
Right.
you know, it's almost like kind of like being a pushover, but I think it's almost ingrained in our culture where it's like you don't like blow up and like cause a problem with everybody. You know, if you have a problem, you don't cause a scene. You
Stay
figure it out
quiet,
and you just keep quiet about it. Everyone has problems too. You know, you just keep it to yourself and you figure it out. You know, whereas like other people would maybe more be like, you know, if they have a problem, they'll say it out loud. You know, they'll just like they'll stand for themselves. You know what I mean? Or stand up for themselves, which I think there's good and bad to everything, obviously. But I think at least a little bit more of that would have been good. But as far as like coming to terms with it, I guess, like what you said of like people want to be more like Asian people to certain degrees. I think it's kind of weird. I don't like hold like a hatred for it, where I'm like you don't want to, I'm not Chinese,
Right.
you know, like obviously I'm
Right.
Chinese and I'm okay with that. But I think it's just like kind of a lot of films, at least the ones that I saw, since I did not do martial arts, like I was like, okay, then my side of the coin is the nerdy side, because I'm not the badass who does martial arts, you know, so I'm the Asian that's quiet and book smart or whatever,
Right.
which is more or less worse for me, because like as model minority, they expect you to like be good at math and like be smart and blah blah blah, but like I was awful at math and I was a bad student, like just straight up I was bad at academics, and I'm losing my train of thought. But
So where did you fit with?
right. Okay, right. So I think I kind of came to terms with it. Like honestly, it was more very recently, I'd say, like because there was no shame to it, but like growing up, I remember my point. Okay, so growing up, the other side of the coin besides martial arts master was the nerdy one, and I remember, especially male Asians, like very emasculated as far as like Hollywood goes, like where if you see an Asian dude, they're usually really fobby once again, where they like don't really speak English and they're used as the butt of the joke. Like you laugh at them, you don't laugh with them. You know, it's more like they don't say something funny where you laugh with them because they're a funny person. That you laugh at them because they're weird and they have like an accent. You know what I mean? Or they're like, you know, not the typical masculine male where like, you know, you're big, you're buff, whatever. But they're like usually scrawny and skinny and they like say something dorky or something. You're like, oh, that's adorable. You know what I mean? And it's like, you gotta push them aside. And I think that's the one thing where I was like, in a weird way, I've always kind of been like, I don't want to be seen as that stereotype. Like I love being an Asian person because that's who I am. But at the same time, I want to change the way that people perceive it, as far as like, Asian guys are not just the nerdy, awkward dude or a martial arts master.
Right,
you know, there's more to us, surprisingly.
We're humans.
Yeah, and I think like obviously in recent years, like very recent years, there's been a big shift in that kind of mentality where it's like, you know, you don't play into the stereotypes as much anymore. You know, where it's like Asian men can be sexy, Asian men can, you know, like there's a big difference of it. And like for that, I'm very grateful. So I think that's where I'm like starting to feel like not more comfortable in my skin, because I have always been kind of like that, but I feel like it's almost like it's catching up to the way that I perceive my ethnicity. You know what I mean? Where it's not just where we're one or the other extreme. You know, we're not just like, or you know, like how like Asian women are like fetishized. You know what I mean? Like it's not where we're either martial arts masters or nerds. We're an actual, like there's actually more to us. We're not just always that stereotype of whatever you kind of categorize as. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
And then
Is that
so question? No, I got yeah. And then because you're in front of the camera, and you're and then what I appreciate is like you're active, you're part of that movement. You know, being we're part and so Richard, for you, you're behind the camera. What are your thoughts? You're not necessarily you know, in front of the camera portraying these characters, but like do you like? Well, first off, the question back at you, what about your identity, or have you had a resolution to your identity?
Yeah, I think it's relatively recently too. Like, kind of for similar reasons to Greg and Dan, through the media. I think just personally seeking out more Asian films and Asian music, and just seeing Asians portrayed in a way that they're very rarely portrayed in America. yeah, just seeing like Asians being regular ass people or cool or desirable or sexy. You know, it's like you just it's sad, but you hardly ever see that here.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, that made me accept it a lot more. And also reading Eddie Huang's book, Fresh Off the Boat.
Oh,
That kind of blew my mind open. How he just like totally forgot about fitting in, and he just embraced like fitting out.
I know that.
I think he introduced that. Yeah, you introduced that book to me, right?
Yeah.
I think, yeah. And I was like, sure, because I think the show was coming out. I read it, and I was like, oh shit, okay.
Yeah, it's a lot better than the show.
It's so much better. No, it's like the book. Like, what was the book is like legit Taiwanese Chinese cuisine.
Yeah.
You know, and then fucking what's the show? It's Orange Chicken. It's like not even good Orange Chicken. It's like Panda Express Orange Chicken. You know, like.
I mean, the show's a start. It's maybe I'm expecting too much from the show. Of course, ABC is not going to have a show that's going to perfectly mimic the book.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, maybe.
But I definitely think it's a good start.
It's
like,
a good start.
I do
Yeah.
agree.
There's
It's
like the first season. There were some few. Yeah. So, one thing I'm curious is like. One thing I was curious about after these are some things I talked about in the callbacks with the actors, and have you ever had that kind of experience? Did they ever do a callback kind of like that?
No, I have never had a callback where it was an interview. And
Oh,
honestly,
really?
I'm honestly though
I was wondering if I was like, shit, is this how you're? I was just trying to.
I mean,
figure,
so from my point of view, because I'm not a casting director, I don't do that side of the camera work. But like from my understanding, it's like okay, if there are like the certain, because obviously auditions to prove that you can act, prove that you can like perform,
Right.
Or not perform, but like be the character. You know what I mean? And I think I don't know. I'm half between the way the callbacks work because
Yeah.
I like the idea of really getting to know the person behind it, because obviously if the audition is to see their talent, you know, there's an overflowing amount of talent in this town, you know, like there's honestly like it comes down to a look or like a small little difference between person A and person B who can play this role, because most of the time there's probably going to be multiple choices for that role, and I like the audition or the callback because it's like it really gets to know who the person is, you know what I mean, and like kind of if it matches up with what you want from this project, you know, how, and it even gives like a, like it's even for the character, especially because as it's like personal to you, you know, as writing it, or as the person who wrote it, that the person who creates the character, who represents the character of Alan, is someone that really like kind of aligns with what you see the character to see, if that makes sense. Now obviously there's the debate of, you know, well that's what acting's for, you know, you portray someone that is not necessarily you, but I also like the idea of the callback of an interview, because it, like, you get to know the person, and obviously I've heard this a lot of times, but between, like, let's say two actors are both extremely talented, but one of them you get along with and you can work well with, and the other one you can't. Obviously, you're going to pick the one that you get along with. And I feel like that's what that callback would be more of, is like, who can I, like, talk to? Who can I jive with more? Who would take direction better? Who can, like, you know, see my vision better, versus, like, obviously the talent is there with these three people or whoever, then how do I differentiate them besides just maybe another read?
Honestly, that was it. And then I remember it was tough, man. It was a tough choice, because this is an important character, you know. And I mean, you probably remember I was sending him some clips and stuff. Hey, what do you think of these guys and stuff like that? And eventually, but at the end of the day, I have to make a choice, you know. And I think it was
hire two Allens, body doubles,
and because it's a big commitment to like to like I made a promise, like I'm gonna pay for your flight, you know, and like and make sure that you're taken care of in Taiwan, because like, and also that's a lot. I mean, to be honest, like, you don't know me, like we didn't know each other. You don't know me. You don't know me. Because it's like there's a lot of trust, like, because I say I'm gonna pay for your flight, but you haven't seen, there's, you know, have you seen there's a lot of trust involved, right? Yeah, for sure. So I think that's kind of what the interview is part of, like building that rapport, that trust.
Actually, so this is kind of funny on the trust note. Maybe I'm too trusting, but after the interview, I was like, this guy's totally upstanding guy. He's cool. And then when I told my parents about it, they were like, who is this person? And they literally like looked up his whole background just to make sure that he's not some like psycho person.
Some weirdo,
literally, they were like, and then my dad was like talking to me about like, oh, did you know that he did this and this? And I was like, no. And he's like, oh, well, he did because it says on his website or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that was just interesting.
So pro tip for the directors that have like some sort of website to legitimize yourself. Yeah. And Richard and I go way back, and we worked on Advantageous together, and I know for I knew that just from the way that we were talking about the aesthetics and about like our vision, my vision for the film and his visual vision for the film, like we were just really on par. So kind of like, sorry to jump around, but like when we thinking about a DP, like he like Richard was my first choice. Like because, well, first of all, I didn't have any other choice. Like, I mean,
first and only choice.
No, there was another. There was like maybe another person, but like, but he said, oh yeah, but no, he was always the main choice, because I did get an offer like to like, hey, if you need help to shoot in Taiwan, and I was like, I already have a guy, so I stuck by Richard, and then this got even more tested when, okay, so. I guess we're halfway through. So let's. I guess one thing I want to get to, Dan, is like the nitty gritty of the film. Like, so I got into Taipei like November 12th or so, or 11th. Like, and we started shooting on December 9th. Okay, so that's like less than a month of prep, which is kind of ridiculous, because there's a lot of pieces that were not coming together yet. And so, but I had Greg, so I was like, okay, I got Greg, he's locked. I had a grandma character already locked down that I met from a year ago. So like real talk, when Richard and I shot that mini short for fun, we were also there to help shoot footage for this Kickstarter video, which is probably, by the time this comes out, I'm gonna have ready and help promote for the Kickstarter. But So we were thinking about that, and then I was still looking for a producer. To be honest, I've been a producer before, and then for my short films, I've always produced my own short films, because I just felt like, in my mind, for some reason, maybe it's my own, like, myself blocking myself, but I was like, no one wants to do this. Like, no one would be willing to do this much work for me, for like, just for the promise of pay, but not actually getting paid up front, maybe right. For like, yeah, because being a producer, you're essentially doing like everything the director doesn't want to do. Like, basically you're doing everything, and that's not like, it's not really that creative. It's just like logistics and getting people and getting shit done. And that's something as an independent filmmaker, I always considered that, to make my own movies, I have to produce my own movies. And so I was like, you know what? And I think, Richard, you made a good point. It's like, James, like, yeah, like, hopefully you can find someone to, like, you can't do everything, right? I was thinking about even acting it, like, real time. Yeah. Do it all. I was thinking about acting it too. And anyways, I was looking for a producer, and a friend I posted online like 3 weeks before shoot, 3.5 weeks before shoot, like basically like really close to shooting, and I was looking for a producer to like help with location permits, finding like the missing ends, like a hair and makeup person, an art person. Main thing was locations. I had 2 of the locations down from prior location scouting, but I didn't have a prison yet. We wanted to shoot at a prison. I was like, I have no idea how to do that. I've never worked in Taiwan before. Like, yeah. So a friend had reposted Xiaopo, shout out to Xiaopo. He helped save the film. He recommended to our producer, Kara. And Kara's, she made this film from like low budget to like, oh my God, like, yeah, like really high production level. So she was mutual friends with Xiaopo. She saw him repost it, and she's like, I've seen this. And then Xiaopo called her, and she didn't pick up the first time. And then he called again because he saw me like trying to get some, like he called again when he saw like me post on Facebook again, and she picked up, and then they started talking, and then she set up a meeting with me. And I don't think I remember when I told you. I said, "Oh, hey, we might work with this big company." Like after we had a production meeting, we saw the lenses and cameras that we might be working with, and then afterwards, we went to get some food, Richard and I, and he's like, "Hey, James, thank you for hiring me on this." And I was like, fucking Richard, don't start this right now, like, because there's already a lot of pressure, like, because come on, think about it, like I started from like this small production, like, and Greg came on this with like belief that I was like legit,
You are. What?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And then
he talks like he's a con artist. My God.
Yeah, no, I had this, that feeling of being a fraud.
I
like,
get you.
You know that feeling of like, shit.
Plus it's like all on you. You're the director. You're the writer. All this is kind of riding on you, and like so you it's kind of like your production, it's your baby. You don't want it.
Yeah.
You don't want your name attached to it and for it to be like a flop.
Yeah.
And then that's like what you're known for. You
Yeah.
want to build a repertoire of like. You work with this guy and good things happen. You know what I mean? Versus you work with this guy and you don't want to work with this guy.
So before we met with them, so Richard and I had we worked on this lookbook, and Richard did most of the work on this lookbook for like, because before we met them, they sent us. She's like, okay, yeah. So Cara said, hey, let me get some of your resumes. So I went asking around for the people who had already said okay to the film. So by that time, I already had maybe a very skeleton crew of a makeup artist, Annie, thank you, Annie, Bai Mao, our sound guy, what's up? Shout out to Bai Mao. We also had David Cho. He came on. He's a big help in the beginning. He was going to be our first AC, but eventually became a production coordinator / production assistant. And then we also had, who else do we have? Let's see. So Annie came on, Bai Mao, David. Yeah, Richard, and then
art department and all the rest of the people.
Yeah, the art department came later after we found. Okay. But like we had the skeleton crew, but I really wanted to show like, okay, who are we as like like we're not some slackers. So we prepared like this little printout. So then when Cara saw, I was like, oh damn, okay, you guys already prepared. Okay, yeah. Like they saw that we ain't joking around. We're not messing around. Yeah. And she appreciated that, and she always told me later, like, because I remember after getting the call from her, like, to like, hey, yeah, I'd be interested. That I was like lying down on the ground on my Airbnb, like, oh shit, can I do this? Like, am I good enough? Yeah. Am I worthy enough? I guess is if we're gonna get like existential here, like, am I worthy enough? And yeah. So I don't know. Did you go through any of that when you saw their? So see, she sent us. So I sent our resume. She sent her resume, and then her Tonga. So Tonga, shout out to Tonga. Yo, our gaffer. Yo, Tonga. 真的他很棒。So he's great. We saw their resume, and I'm like, dude, like you. I feel like me sending you our resumes is kind of insult, because their resume is like, oh, you want to talk about this? Yeah.
I mean, we looked at their resumes, and it's like some of our favorite films are on there, right?
Yeah, I was intimidated. I mean, what would you feel like going to that meeting?
Yeah, I was pretty nervous. But I mean, once we met them, they're both really down to earth, Cara and Tonga. Yeah, they're just so real awesome people. They're just amazing. Really, no egos at all, even with the level of skill.
Because you met them for the first time on set, I guess, right? What was your impression? Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't know any of their resume stuff or any of that, so I was just like, I honestly went in like blind. I was just like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm here to do my work, and I'm gonna kill it. And then I went in there, and then like I remember walking on, and it's like a studio basically. I was like, oh, interesting. This is pretty big. And then I remember walking on, and the security guy stopped me. He's like, hey, what are you here for? And I said the name of the project, and he's like, no, who do you know? Like, why are you here? And I was like, Cara? And he's like, oh, okay. And he immediately switches personality. He's like, oh, come on.
He meant on the rehearsal. This is rehearsal day. Yeah.
And I remember like just walking onto the studio lot, and I was like, and I've done like big production stuff before, but for commercials, because that's where like big companies, they put their money in commercials and all that stuff. So I've been in like huge warehouses and stuff before, but I've never done that for like theatrical stuff. You know what I mean? And so when I walked on to it, I was like, oh damn, okay, this is pretty big.
It's a studio lot. I got an office in Taipei.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
And
I've never had an office before.
And I was like, okay, cool, all right. And then so I still didn't like. I didn't know any of their resumes, but honestly, just after working with them, like because I've worked the gamut from like free non-union stuff and like just starting out short film stuff and like people who are like first year directing as undergrad to like bigger stuff, and like you could just tell when you work with people and they know what they're doing. Like it's just like professional. Like it's not and I don't mean it in like the cut and dry like business sense where they're like they don't have time for BS, they don't have time for any of this. They're professional as in they know what they're doing and what they want, and like when it's business time they like buckle down, and you could tell that they don't seem lost. You know what I mean? Like they know that what they do and they do it well.
Yeah.
It's not that confidence with it. There's no like nervous energy in the room. There's no like, okay, what are we gonna do next? What do you want now? What do you like none of that kind of like I guess like amateurness. You know what I mean? But it's just like they know what they want. They know what they're gonna do. But at the same time, with what he said about the no ego thing, like I didn't even know they were like big shot people until the very end, because like the way that they talked to me and the way that we interacted, they were just like the chillest people.
So chill.
It was just people who are there to do their job, and like they do it well. You know what I mean? It was honestly like smooth as heck.
The person who deserves the most ego, Tamka, has probably like is the most chill guy I've ever chill. As a human being. Anyways, the reason I brought that up is because Richard said thank you to me because like to be honest, Kara probably knew some other DPs. Real talk.
Yeah.
And then she asked me, and this is one of the pressures of working with a studio, is that, hey James, okay, I spoke with her. Like first it was just me that went to the studio by myself, and then I brought Richard later after that weekend, and then I think it was weekend. Yeah, I brought him a couple days later, and they asked me, hey, Cara asked me, hey James, I'm willing to come on board, but you have to let me know. You have to be okay if I make suggestions, and if that's okay with you, if we have to change some things, change some people, if that's okay with you, because at the end of the day, James, I want to make a good film. That's my goal. Hopefully that's your goal too. And I'm like, really? Okay, great. And she said, but I respect your vision. Is there anyone that you will not change? Like there's like it's for sure. And I say, well, freaking Greg already signed a contract.
That's true. It's too late.
It's too late. Well, Greg already signed a contract, and then Richard, like, you know what? I thought of okay. So real talk. I thought okay, if I got like it flickered across my mind, but that was it. I was just like, nah, man. Richard's gonna be the DP, man. Like, because we already worked on the basically. And, we already worked on the look for the film together. And so, he's going to be the DP. And so we're one package. I told her, hey, Richard and I are one package. And she's like, cool. Yeah, like she made it sound like hella serious at first. Like, hey, as a producer, like I'm going to make some changes. I'm like, well, Richard and I are a package. Oh, cool. Yeah. I'm like, okay. We got Tenmu Yi, who's like he's not like internationally famous, but like everyone, like if you show him to like a random Taiwanese person on the street, they'll be like, hey, I recognize that guy. He's like he's paid his dues in the industry. He's a veteran actor in Taiwan, much older gentleman. So we got him, and that was through Kara's help. Now.
So what other parts do you want to talk about your production that stuck with you that you really want to like express and capture?
I've been like looking through the first day footage recently, and we can talk about that. That's like our first day on shoot. So the first shot was this is the very first shot. So Richard and I, what we did for our production was that prior to each day of shooting, we did a shot list. And Cara, she didn't really expect that, because actually there's a lot of directors that she's worked with before, first-time directors, who like they're just slackers. They just they come on set and like, okay, everyone do this without like any homework. But like Richard and I, well, we don't want to we're not showing just, we actually want to do a shot list that will help convey both of our artistic visions. You know, we're not just doing homework to show off that we've done homework. We want to do homework so that it helps. You know.
Yeah, obviously. I don't think people really do homework to show that they do homework.
You know, like, well, hey teacher Kara, I did the homework. No. It's more like we wanted to make sure that we had solidified our artistic vision. Yeah. And what's great about working with Richard was that Richard will push back if there's an issue, which I enjoy. Well, I don't know if I enjoy it, but it's just like, it's that he has his own voice, I have my own voice, and that's great, because then that means he's not just like a yes man. He's actually somebody I could bounce ideas off. Yep. Same with Greg too. And this is something I've really appreciated about working with Greg and also Richard as well, is that, I don't have all the answers. What? And I don't, yeah. So as a director, and Richard had made a great point about this, it's like the director's kind of like a coach, I guess. It's like, I mean, I can't, like, you guys are not robots. I can't, like, program you to do exactly like this. I want human beings to collaborate with and basically give me their thoughts. And for some reason, like, in the room, like, we weren't feeling that line. And Greg's like, hey, how about this? We just cut it. And freaking also shout out to Chen Mui. I mean, I don't know, we can get into it, but like Chen Mui, he's a little intimidating to work with, real talk. He's older veteran actor. But like, he really he can really act. He's a freaking, and he was able to without even any direction, he helped modify the lines and changed it to like where it really fit the script. Like he read he understood the heart of what I was going for. And Greg was great. It was like just like rolling with it. Like first day, freaking Richard, man. The most dollies I've ever worked with, like, you want to talk about why start with like the dolly shots. Yeah. So initially, the first day of shooting is kindergarten scene with Greg is at the kindergarten, and then Officer Bay shows up and sees him allegedly teaching illegally, and like, maybe something's not right here. So Richard and I talked about, and he's like, hey, because it's fairly dramatic, and we're seeing characters for the first time, it might be good to have a dolly shot.
We wanted to visually separate. Like, we're introducing Alan's world. And it's going to be cut back and forth with his grandma's world. So we were thinking, well, visually we could keep, the grandma's world more static as she's alone in her home. And then for Greg or Alan, he's out there. And ABC, maybe make this thing more dynamic. He's younger, this kind of thing. There's more action going on on his side of the story at that point. Yeah.
Because one thing we were thinking about, I don't know if you know this, Greg, but we were thinking about like, Alan is American, like kind of. This is Richard's idea, and let me know if I'm not stating correctly. But it's like, what? So Alan was. Why don't you say it? Like Alan's world signify what kind of cinema? I guess.
Yeah. Kind of more, I guess, more westernized cinema. And it's a generalization.
Yeah.
Complete generalization, but it was a way to think of it that made it easier for us. And then I guess the grandma's side would be more. Representing like the slower type of like Asian art cinema.
Art. Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was kind of like that was a general rule, but eventually it started fusing towards the end. And that's kind of yeah.
I mean, we didn't stick to it religiously, but it was something to keep in mind when picking shots.
Especially with the scene with you and Officer Bay. Like originally, I was thinking like freaking like Burning, like Lee Chan-dong film where it's like. The camera is moving and falling, like it's one take. It's a wonder. It's kind of more like Spielberg wonder, where there's motion to the camera.
Yeah.
But eventually we saw you and Chen Mui like rehearse it. And then like I was like, and then Richard, I don't know if you had like what when you saw them rehearse it.
Yeah, I kept walking around and trying to figure out like what can we do, and then but just based on the performances and yeah, like I think it was best to just keep the camera completely static.
Yeah.
And just let the performances like speak for themselves. Like the camera doesn't need to do anything.
And what's crazy, I was thinking that too, and then when Richard came up to, hey James, let's just do it on sticks, and just like sticks being like just on the tripod static. I'm like, fuck yes, exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah. So we had that in Chinese we say 默契. We had that. I guess the English equivalent is like silent agreement. You know, like yeah, we had that silent agreement already. Yeah.
Cool.
So how are we doing on time, Dan?
It's we're actually at that time.
Yeah,
I mean, it's an hour and a half already.
Has it been? I think we started. Yeah, about hour 9:20. Yeah, so it's about hour 20 minutes. Yeah. Okay. Let's wrap it up in like 10 minutes or less. Let's see. Okay. I guess I'll do big picture of what happened, and then maybe final thoughts about what you guys thought about the shoot,
Sure.
and then we'll just wrap it up from there. Maybe do language corner. So language corner is like maybe a phrase that we learned, a Chinese phrase or Taiwanese phrase we might have learned, and that you guys might want to share, or Japanese. Anyways, big picture promotes. So I worked on this film called Ahma Alan. It's about 20 to 30 minutes. Right now we're looking for funding for the Kickstarter to help with post-production as well as and also like there was investors, but they're like basically my family, and I hope that I just want to show that I want to make this film and finish this film, and hopefully because of this film I had to go into debt. I had to I had to borrow some money, and so hopefully with your support I can help finish this film and also help and so we'll help finish this film and make it, and also we also need funding for festival submissions as well. And I think it's the biggest project I've ever worked on as a director. And then you want to speak to that? Like, have you worked on any project like this before, or?
No, this is one of the best filmmaking experiences I've ever had.
Yeah.
The cast and crew were amazing. It was a great experience in shooting in Taiwan for the first time.
Yeah. Great.
I mean, I'm overly verbose in all my answers, so I'm gonna try and copy Richard here. But honestly, ditto to that. Like honestly, it was just okay. I'm becoming verbose. Okay, long story short. Honestly, this is definitely the biggest like theatrical that I've ever done. But on top of that, it's just honestly the passion and like the professionalism and like I'm gonna say passion again, because honestly, it just, you could tell that it's something that people really care about. That everyone who worked on it, they have their own stake in it, and honestly, it was just a wonderful experience, like truly wonderful experience.
Yeah, and I mean, I learned a lot from this film, and not just about like I learned a deal about filmmaking, but also I learned a great deal about just like pursuing art in general, or like why do this, why suffer why struggle for this, because it's not easy. It's not easy, and I had fun. I had days of like intense anxiety or suffer, but at the end of the day, it's like, what, I think this story is worth it. Like hearing you guys talking about identity and stuff, like that's great. It connected you in a way that I hope it connects with other viewers as well. And I think it's worth it. Yeah. And at each stage of the project, even though, there's challenges along the way, I think we all met them, and I think that's that's what makes life fun, is that if life was always so easy and just whatever, flat and no bumps in the road, it'd be kind of boring. But I don't know about you guys, but I had a blast. Yeah. And so we had just big overview. We had 5 days of shooting. We shot in Taipei, Taiwan. We also had 1 day in Lugang, You weren't there for it, but that was our was that our longest day? That was our longest day, right? Yeah.
Yes.
If you're including transportation.
Richard looks tired. He's like, yeah.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. But like, once you see it, you probably saw in the screenshots I sent you, Dan. But like, yeah, the art direction and like they had set up lights there. It's like an old home. It's a side of Taiwan not a lot of people get to view. Also, third day, so yeah, we shot in Lukang. Then on the third day, we did. Was that the American School third day? Let me see. Yeah, it was American School was the third. We shot at a place to make it look like American School. And so we had to get a wig, and that's like a whole nother story of like, should we use the wig or should we use the God, anyways. So fourth day we stole shots on the train. That was crazy. We shot with the red on that day because the red's a little bit smaller. The red epic dragon epic, yeah. And that was I had a lot of fun shooting on the train. That was fun. I saw Richard though. He was straining. He was like, and he's not a short guy because he's sitting right now, but like he's a tall dude. So he's like, like trying to get the shot, and then we had the taxi stuff. The taxi stuff looks pretty like, I mean, yeah. Do you want to talk about the look for the taxi at all, or?
Yeah, I really like the look. It's a nighttime scene with the grandma riding in the back of a taxi through the Taipei streets.
We didn't know how to shoot that until like our first AC, Xiaopeng, shout out to Xiaopeng, Ken. He came up with a solution about like how to use
stabilize the camera inside of the taxi so it doesn't look that handheld.
Dude, our crew, like not just Xiaopeng, everyone was so dope. And then last day, fifth day was Greg comes back where we shot the prison stuff, and we already touched on that. That was intense day. And let's wrap it up. My language corner today is going to be irashaimase. Irashaimase. Irashaimase is basically what they say in Japan. So I took a quick break to Tokyo, and I was like, what are these people saying? I go into the freaking department store or like or a store, and they would say irashaimase. They say it really super fast. Basically, it means like hwaning, means like welcome in Japanese. Dan, am I pronouncing that right?
Irashai.
Huh?
Irashaimasen.
Irashai.
Irashai.
Irashaimase. Yeah, irashaimase. And I was like, what the heck are they saying? So welcome. And then, the other thing I learned on set was something called foxing. And that means like having a Buddha's heart. That's Chinese. Oh. And that's something that Tonga was really telling me about, is that, James, like, you have, enjoy the process, have fun, because at the end of the day, that's all you have. How the film turns out, of course, we work and we're working towards a great goal, but at the same time, you have to, like, if you're not having fun or if you're not enjoying the process, then why don't you just get like, why are you doing this? And Tonga, he's really opened my eyes, not just on filmmaking, but just about how to live. And he talked about having a Buddha's heart, whereas like not taking things too seriously, but still, it's crazy. It's like you work hard and you work seriously, but you don't take things too seriously, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, you're working, you're working well towards a goal or whatever, but at the same time, you're in the present. And you're enjoying that moment.
You're enjoying the process.
The process, yeah. Anyways, do you guys have any,
language corner?
Any language corner? Yeah.
Mine is Washi Taiwan La, because I say it a lot in this film, but also it just means I'm a Taiwan person. Yeah. Taiwanese person.
I'm Taiwanese. Washi Taiwan La. Yeah. Good. Sure, you're studying Chinese right now, or?
How do you say director?
Dao-Yan, yeah.
Okay, that's
this guy.
I'm Dao-Yan, and then he's the 摄影师. 摄影师 is a director of photography. 摄影导演, I guess, I think 摄影师 is the common one, right? Yeah. So that means cinematographer or director of DP, and that's this guy. Yeah. Dan, you have anything or?
Yeah, for mine, it's a Western Japanese, is okini. Okini is like thank you, but it's like a Kyoto kind of thing.
Oh, it's Kansai dialect, right? Yeah.
Kansai, yeah.
What's Kansai?
Kansai is Western. They speak in Western Japan. Okini.
Okini.
What does that mean again? Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okini.
If I said that anywhere in Japan, will they understand, or will they just?
I'm sure they'll probably know, because at some point now that most people go to Kyoto, because Kyoto is like one of the oldest it's like an old school capital for Japan. So it's Kanto or Kansai.
Oh.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Dan, thanks for letting us go over a little
thank
bit.
you.
Yeah,
Well,
thank
Dan,
you. Yeah.
Okini.
Okini. All right. I got to go.
Nice meeting you guys.
All right. See you, man.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you.
See ya.